Do you know what the optimal foot strike is for runners? It's actually a trick question because there is no optimal foot strike for runners. Take a load off on this nice bench here in the park. That's because your foot strike is sometimes a function of how fast you're running and also your unique biomechanics. Your mechanics dictate how your body moves. And while you can change that a little bit, it is not something that you can dramatically overhaul and completely change from top to bottom. Your running form is something that, for the most part, you're sort of stuck with. It is like your genetics. You know, you can tweak it, you can change the expression of your running form a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's not something that you can dramatically change. There have actually been some really interesting studies that show that in long ultramarathon distance races, runners who have a more variable foot strike and can change between a forefoot strike, a midfoot strike, and a heel strike are actually more economical over the course of the race because they know when they can conserve energy. They know when maybe a foot strike is just going to be too damaging to the musculature of their feet and lower legs over time, especially when you're talking about a race that might take 20 hours or 24 hours or maybe even 30 hours. You can't be running up on the balls of your feet for that amount of time. And so having a little bit more control over your foot strike can be really beneficial in those situations. All right, so if there is no optimal foot strike, if you can run with a forefoot strike or a heel strike, it really just depends on your mechanics, why are we even going to talk about this today? Well, I think it's helpful to understand some of the nuances behind forefoot, midfoot, and heel striking so that you can better understand things and that you don't get hung up on all this dogma about it's terrible to have a heel strike and everyone should be running up on the balls of their feet. Look, earlier we discussed how your foot strike is sort of dependent upon your running speed. So if you are running really slow, you're going for a very easy recovery run, it's going to be a lot more likely that you might have a heel strike. Now, the opposite of that is true as well. If you are flying around the track running mile pace or faster, you might be running with a forefoot strike. And that's just because to run faster, you have to change your mechanics a little bit. And part of that is running with your foot in a more elongated position. You're going to be more dorsiflexed. You're going to be putting the ball of your foot down on the track or the road first, and it's a great way to run faster. Now, the midfoot strike is often labeled the more economical type of foot strike that you can have. And it's a little bit more versatile because you can be running easy and have a midfoot strike, and you can be running really fast and still have a midfoot strike. So there's a lot of different options for the midfoot strike. But at the end of the day, there really is no right answer. And, you know, there is a lot of drama around how bad a heel strike can be, especially after 2009 or so, after Christopher McDougall's book, Born to Run, came out, and everyone started demonizing heel striking. But look, you can look at some of the best runners in the world. One of the best examples is Meb Keflezighi, winner of the Boston Marathon. He has a heel strike. And so a heel strike is not necessarily a bad thing, especially when it's what's called a proprioceptive heel strike. If you have a proprioceptive heel strike, what that means is you're essentially coming down with your heel touching the ground first, but you're not putting all your weight down on your heel. It's almost like your heel is kissing the ground, and then when your foot is fully in contact with the ground in a more neutral position, that is when you put your full weight down. So there's a lot of different ways to strike the ground, and some of them are better than others, but there is no one right type of foot strike. This video is sponsored by Inside Tracker, our newest partner for the YouTube channel, and I couldn't be more excited. They are an ethical company. They are a company that I've been using personally for years, and they're one of the most reputable blood testing companies in the country. Inside Tracker tests your blood very simply. They look at over 40 different biomarkers, from stress hormones like cortisol to testosterone levels and vitamin D, all so that you know what's going on inside your body. So you can tell if you're undertraining, you're overtraining, you're optimally training, or if you just have any other health issues that might be going on that might be impacting your running. And like I said, I've been using them for years. I've gotten numerous ultimate tests, and I'm about to get my third, and I added on the DNA kit. This is going to be really special for me, just to get a more in-depth look at what's going on inside me so that I know if there are any red flags that I have to address. And that part of the whole procedure is why I love Inside Tracker, because you know what they do? They don't just give you a report showing you how your markers might be in the zone or outside the zone. They tell you how to improve them. So if you are too low or too high with any of these metrics, they give you science-backed ways to improve upon them through diet, exercise, or lifestyle changes. So I'm super happy about this partnership. And if you go to insidetracker.com/strengthrunning, use code strengthrunning, you're gonna get 25% off any test that they have. This is a great offer, and I'm really excited to partner with this company, so hope you take advantage of it. That's insidetracker.com/strengthrunning, and use code strengthrunning to save 25% off on any test. Now I want to give you some advice on how to be more comfortable with having a more varied foot strike, so that if you're really tired and you're running on some soft dirt and you only have a mile left in your run, a heel strike isn't really a bad thing, especially if you're not overstriding. You're not reaching out in front of you with your feet and landing significantly ahead of your center of mass. Whereas, if you are running a very fast workout, or, you're at the end of a 5K and you're trying to kick hard to the finish line, those are good opportunities to be up on your forefoot. But then a lot of the times, if you're just doing, a normal base run, you're cruising along, maybe you're doing a tempo workout, in those examples where it's more of a moderate effort, maybe you want to just have a nice midfoot strike. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get comfortable with all three of these types of foot strikes. Number one, run trails. You see where I am now, this varied terrain, it's really going to force your body into different positions, and that's going to be a good thing over the long term. The other thing that you can do is practice running fast. Do track workouts, do strides, do hill sprints, do all those types of faster running where you're going to be forced to run with a midfoot strike. And then of course, let's just follow some basic principles of sound running form, like not overstriding, trying to land underneath your center of mass, right underneath your hips, as opposed to, reaching out in front of you and trying to cover more ground that way. A long stride is really long behind you. It's not because you're reaching out ahead of you. The other thing that you can do is have an upright, tall, athletic posture. We don't want to be leaning too far forward. We don't want to be leaning to the side or leaning back. Have a good athletic posture. And the other thing that you can look at with your running form is cadence. Let's make sure you're running at about 170 or more steps a minute. That's if your easy running pace is faster than 10 minutes a mile. But if you're a slower runner, no big deal. Let's just make sure your cadence is over 160 steps per minute in that example. So there's a lot of different ways to think about foot strike, but the number one lesson here is not to be dogmatic about it. There's no one right foot strike. You can have almost any type of foot strike, and there are contexts in which it is appropriate. So expose yourself to a lot of different foot strikes, get comfortable running fast, and of course, work on those basic fundamentals of sound running form.